And we are
Hello.
live! What's going on, everybody? Sorry we're
Oh,
late. We
hello.
were discussing a multitude of things behind the scenes that were
Stuff.
sort of needed to be discussed or were relevant or it weren't as well. So it is what it is. We're a few minutes late. I guess I'm still on island time a little bit. I
Hey.
was,
Game
if
on.
you didn't know, I was away for a couple weeks on vacation, living the island life, waking up when the sun came up and
Oh,
going to sleep when the sun went down,
so
which is
Yeah,
like
nice.
baby.
I don't get nearly enough sleep. I realized that when I was on vacation, when I was like, oh, I feel tired. The sun's gone down. I'm gonna go to bed, and then I'd wake up naturally refreshed by having like a full night's sleep because I wasn't worried about work tomorrow and my Spiro responsibilities and my other Kickstarter responsibilities and all these things that I was just admittedly kind of just not doing for 2 weeks. It was tough. It was tough to get back. I was saying to Jason before we started, it's one thing, if you're sort of southern enough that you have sort of a pretty steady diet of sunshine. But for us up here in the north, we don't get nearly as many hours of sunshine in the winter, and it's tough, man. I'll tell you what, waking up naturally when it's pitch black outside does not happen for me
Yeah,
at
that's rough.
42 or for my kids at 2,
Yeah,
5, and 9. So it's always
yeah.
a struggle. But it's good to be back. It's good. It's good to be back on train. Is it? I don't know. Now that I think of it, and I'm
It
like
is.
really selling myself on the on like
Yeah, you're talking
no.
yourself out of it.
No, but it's good to be back. It's good to be back in my own bed. It's good to have, my toys. Good to be sort of back at, the things that I love. So I guess that's the balance that I have to strike is, that balance of waking up in the dark and
Uh,
doing the things that I love. So anyway,
Curious, did you bring any toys with you? Which toys made it with you to the island?
we know
so
two of them.
two, only ever two. That's sort of my go-to because
I know one.
as a toy collector, my thing is that everywhere I go, I'm looking for toys. So, if I'm going to a
Mm.
convention or even if I'm going on vacation, I know I'm probably going to come back with some toys. So my two travel companions, my travel buddies, my adventure buddies are actually Pale and Goyle the
Mm.
Plunderling. So those are I take them with me sort of everywhere I go, and always have these intentions of like doing these photos and like doing these things and like really documenting that they're with me and playing with my toys on vacation, and then I never do it.
That's legit. You actually do. When I met you in Vancouver, what, 2 years ago now? You
Yeah,
brought those two to dinner. Those exact two figures.
yep. They've been my
Okay,
travel
they're your
buddies
buddies, huh?
for
Okay,
2.5 years. It's been, I think, like
huh?
basically since like
I love it.
yeah, about 2.5 years. Like I've had the two figures, and those are my absolute go-tos. And it's easy because I actually have I have a little sort of hip pack bag that they fit in
Uh-huh.
perfectly. So like, oh, I'm packing for my vacation. I pull out the hip bag, I get the figures, and like it's like I don't even
That's
think about
awesome.
it. So yeah, it's pretty fun. But like I said, I
It's
always have
just
the
second
best
nature.
intentions of playing with them, and
Yeah.
then I do play with them, and I just never take the pictures or whatever. So anyway. What's going on with you guys? Brick,
Yeah.
how's
Yeah.
things? What's
Derek
going on?
asked me, he's like, "Are you bringing
Oh,
Thane?"
That's a big one.
and I hope. Are you going to answer? You're not going to answer. You have.
Wait,
You should put thing.
it's
Give him
cutting out.
straps
I'm
and put them on
sorry.
your back. I was going to say, okay, that's all right.
Yeah,
We were
he
talking
asked.
about
He's
you.
like, "Are you bringing Thane this time?" And for the longest time, I didn't have a good carry-on bag. I mean, I had a good carry-on bag, but not really good for fitting a big figure. So I've since upgraded. So now I need to start bringing my Thane with me. He made a couple of airport appearances, and then I gave up for probably 3 or 4 shows, maybe a little bit more. But in the new year, I'll start bringing him again.
Get like a chain, just kind of wear them around your neck,
There you
kind
go.
of like
Or get
I
a
like
little
that idea.
pouch, like a little pouch that he can fit in, and he can sit
yeah,
on
like
Yeah,
a
like a little
little
baby. Yes,
Yeah,
baby's
that's actually
urn.
exactly.
pretty
Yeah.
funny.
Like a little harness
That's
so they have it on
funny.
your
I
chest.
like that. Yes.
But I'm doing fine. Things are a little bit messy, but whatever. I'm here. I'm ready to talk toys. So let's just do that.
Cool. Let's jump into the chat because we were late, so the chat was already sort of going, and then we'll get into things. Brian Carr is here. He says excited for what's to come for AWOK. Need to watch the game, but we'll definitely catch the replay. I watched the first half of the first game. I'm much more interested in the second game. Sports ball. So we will probably try to wrap up before 3:30, which I think is kickoff for the second game. But
are the games at least being played by teams with animal names?
No. Because one of them is the Washington Commanders. But other than that, we have.
Who are the Commanders playing?
They're playing the Philadelphia Eagles, and
they are playing the Eagles, right?
Eagles were up at halftime, and then the second game is the America's favorite team, the Kansas City Chiefs. I've since realized that people just hate the Chiefs now. It's funny.
I hate them.
I think when Mahomes was brand new and fresh, everybody was like, "Oh, this guy's great. We love watching Mahomes." Now it's like the same as Brady. People hated Brady.
No, here's the thing.
And people now hate Mahomes.
Mahomes is one person?
Yeah.
Not like quarterback.
This is the way I feel about it. When you were a kid, did you ever buy the same pair of sneakers twice in a row?
No.
It's boring as shit. Like,
too many
I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch a bunch of replay. I don't want to watch the same team 4 years in a row for the Super Bowl. You know, that's boring.
I don't disagree, but also as a person whose parents were from the East Coast, right near Buffalo, although in Canada, the Buffalo Bills are kind of my East Coast team. So I think they could do it. But anyways, moving on.
I hope they do.
From sports ball talk. Yeah, everybody wants to see the Bills win. Even just because they want to see Mahomes lose, which is kind of funny.
Mahomes is a good dude. I like him.
He's a great quarterback.
Very talented, and he's super nice.
He's so unlikable because he's just too nice and easy, and just exactly. I can see why people dislike him.
His hillbilly accent too. It's like kind of sort of representing the South, but not quite. You know, they're a little too north.
I will say this, and then we'll wrap up the sports talk. I don't understand why he wears his helmet the way he wears it.
I stopped watching, actually watching football whenever Drew Brees retired. So I just kind of see little snippets of it when I'm walking by.
Yeah, he's got his helmet just sits funny on his head.
Too high up.
It's his helmet and he can wear it however he wants. But it's just that's what I don't like about Patrick Mahomes. But anyways, moving on. No Chewing is here, or was. I don't know. At this point, the people have probably left. Sean Colleran, Larry's Geeky World, Ray Paz, Gabrielle, Rob Zamoris. Is this live? It wasn't when you asked, but it is now. Let's see. Austin M. Christopher Bouchard. Endless Fables, Game Quest. It's all the familiar names are here. Nice. Good to have you guys.
Hey, it's the monkeys.
Let's see. Quip is here as well.
I'm hanging out with him today.
I was gonna say, yeah, you got Quip on today. Yeah.
I am. Yeah, it's awesome.
Let's see. Austin says, "Go Bills." Correct. That is correct. Quip says Mahomes is good. His family is probably more of a reason why people don't like him. Plus, the Kelsey Swift romance got people all bent out of shape. It's funny that people dislike the Kansas City Chiefs because of Taylor Swift, but that's the least relevant aspect of what's anyway.
Get it out now, Quip.
Yeah,
there's gonna be no football talk.
You'll feel better
on our show later. Just so you know. But keep talking. I'll eat my ramen.
Okay, hold on. I saw a comment here that could sort of lead, and I went right past it. Because this is, in a nutshell, what we're probably going to be talking about. He says, "Got my order from Spiro this weekend. Awesome stuff, but now I need a break to wait on the lizards." Yes. So, first point of that. Spiro's site is going strong. The sale's still on. If you need AWOK figures, now's the time. If you're army building, if you need some extras, you want to do some pop and swaps that, hey, I got an idea. Now's the time. Because the prices are right, and I don't think they'll ever be better than this. Go
get those weapon sets, headsets.
Yeah, I got my loot crates that I haven't.
Oh, nice! Yeah,
nice. Those are so much fun. I have what amounts to a loot crate because I took apart a Hawken to
Oh, nice.
dye. I'm gonna
Oh,
dye one, and then I'm gonna use these
what
parts on another sort of
what
feralist.
color are you gonna dye it?
I'm just gonna I'm gonna try to. Okay, so uh, jaguars, like the black cat,
Mm.
are
Yeah,
technically melanistic. I think that's the right term. Melanistic
right.
versions of a leopard or
Yeah,
a
Black
jaguar.
Panther is a
Black
jaguar.
Panthers.
That's
A black
yeah,
panther
it's
is a black
yeah,
jaguar.
yeah,
Or no, a black panther. Yeah, is a black
yeah. It's a
leopard.
black jaguar.
I think
Yeah,
a black
that's what
jaguar.
I
I
meant.
think has
Leopard.
a
Sorry.
slightly different. Anyways, it's
Yeah,
very confusing. But
yeah,
what's cool is that they still have spots if you look close enough. So what I'm hoping is that I'm gonna dye Hawken and still, because the spots are painted, I'm hoping they
yeah,
won't dye the same way and it'll still look
yeah.
like a spotted cat.
That would be
Um,
cool.
I will keep you posted on the results.
Yeah,
So he's been all stripped and he's ready to go. I just haven't had the time to do that. I'll probably do it, I don't know, in like 2027 when I
there you
finally
go.
find some time to do something like that.
Mm.
Um but that was, a result of these, being on sale and stuff like that. So as I said, if you need some Spiro stuff, go grab some stuff because the price is right and will never be better. On a related note, I will, there has been a few orders that got delayed, and I want to sort of, for full transparency, get ahead of it. The problem was we ran out of a couple SKUs at the fulfillment warehouse. We shipped them, and it took literally 4 weeks, a little over 4 weeks for them to arrive at the warehouse from Louisiana to New Jersey. There was just a massive delay. So we kept thinking they were going to be there. USPS, didn't update properly, and so on and so forth. That being said, everything's fixed. We've got all the products at fulfill right now, and orders are going out super quick. We're dealing with a different issue now, but I'm aware of it, and it's easy
Yeah.
enough for me to fix. So that's not delaying anybody's orders. It's just taking longer for me to process the orders.
There's
Um,
one other issue that caused the delay. So Adam mentioned that the warehouse ran out of stuff. So Derek and Sequoia tried a couple of days. We got 6 to 7 inches of snow, which we don't ever get. We don't have the infrastructure for it. We don't have like snow plows or anything like that. They were able to get everything packed on Thursday, but the post office still wasn't open. So they dropped everything off yesterday. Uh, so stuff it all went out, but it was just several little things that all it
yeah.
just caused a bunch of hiccups. But it's all, like Adam said, it's all smoothed out now.
Yeah, and I will say this too, that there was another YouTube video, and I'm not gonna sort of point it out or anything like that, but they said, we had an issue with an order, and I'm wondering if this is sort of a widespread issue. And somebody in their chat said, oh, I had the same issue and I got the same email, and they were like, oh, this must be like an auto generated answer. The truth is, it's not auto generated. I just said the same thing to the two people that had exactly the same issue. Every email is generated by me typing it out. Everything is done.
AI Adam.
Yeah, AI me. I don't even cut and paste. I just remember, okay, this is what I said to this person.
That's
so I
impressive.
I
use
want to be
Google Docs.
consistent to the other person.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sort of say one thing to one person for the same issue and say something to the other person, and then it's just confusing if those people bump into each other in a chat or whatever, right? So, but all those orders have been shipped and fixed, and those issues are something that we're aware of, but we're just like getting over, right? But I did want to point out another thing. They compared us to a considerably bigger company, which is flattering because there's literally 4 employees of Spiro Toys. And it's like, it's flattering that people sort of see us in the same light as they see some of the other brands that we have a huge amount of respect for. And to think that we're sort of doing what some of those bigger companies are doing on a admittedly it's on a smaller scale and with fewer people. it's something that we're pretty proud of. So I don't have an issue with people saying, hey, here's an issue. I'm happy to sort of discuss the issue or sort of be transparent about why something happened or didn't happen or whatever. So again, as I say sort of all the time, if you have questions, if you have comments, feel free to post them, share them with us, ask us, whether you want to do it sort of in an email or a message directly to us or publicly. Any sort of, I am of the opinion that if anybody has a complaint and they want to air it publicly, it gives us an opportunity to sort of publicly show how our customer service works and publicly be transparent about, the issues that we have as a small company and so on and so forth. So anyways, as I said, we had a couple hiccups over the last couple weeks, part of which was because I was, away and not sort of at my computer every single day, like twice a day, like I normally am. But it's, it's stuff that you deal with. Moving on. But yeah, go order some stuff. You'll get it shipped really quick. I promise. Now that I'm back. Okay, moving on. You sent me something that I'm pulling up here.
And so just I know it's kind of open-ended, but what are your thoughts on Jason in particular? Where's the sale going? Are you thinking it's going to be up soon? Will we be giving people a heads up before it closes? Which
we'll probably do like a week. We'll probably say like one more, like whenever we're going to wrap it up, we'll say like, hey, there's 1 week left. Okay. So yeah.
And that'll be by the social media and the
right.
What do you, it's not called whatever, the mailing
right
by email.
The mailing, the mail letter,
for
newsletter.
Whoever's on the mailing list. Yeah, the newsletter.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
They're out that warehouse.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we look at the production update?
Yeah, let's check it out.
Let's get all the tough stuff out of the way.
Yeah, let's
first.
do it.
Brick, do you want me to just bring up the calendar?
Schedule wise? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll bring it up here. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Can you see
so
it?
This is this is the timeline of everything Spiro, really. Underneath that little monkey business leaf over there, it says the estimated sort of production timeline for AWOK and Bushido. So we just put out a episode of AWOK Talk, the sort of pre-recorded episodes on my channel, as myself and Jason, because Adam has a real job. I'm just kidding. Anyways, and we talked all about this because on this Wednesday over on the Kickstarter, we did our sort of like starting back up on our regular AWOK Wednesday updates to the backers. And we wanted to let people know, like, hey, it's actually been about 60 days because it was like right before the Thanksgiving holiday. Mm-hmm. And then, like you were saying, like I went into sort of holiday mode and kind of shut down on some stuff. And then school and life kicked my butt and just kind of never got back to it. So finally got back to it and we're like, hey, let's just give folks a sense of like when these things are coming, et cetera, especially since like, folks were sort of looking at the original Kickstarter and saying, hey, where are these figures? So we kind of did like a real super rough draft version that I was like, oh man, I saw it. I was looking, I was like, oh, there's some typos. There's little things here and there that are like confusing, like real.
That was my fault.
Yeah. But I was just like, okay, but at least people will have a sense of like what's important. Yeah, I think people are wondering about like, when are the first figures coming? So we're like, okay, here, let's put that out. And then, man, I was working all day and I was like, oh, this feels uncomfortable. So that night I kind of went through and was like, hey, let's figure this out. Let's fix this so we can upload it again. So this is the new version. You see everything going on there. It's sort of organized by, I guess, seasons essentially, and when things are going to break down. And you can kind of see what's included in those different colored ones. We included the Bushido stuff in there also just because it is affecting production, right? But This is like the totality of Spiro's stuff in at a glance. And then the other thing, if you're able to bring that up, do you have that?
Which other thing?
So bit.ly/ what is it again? Hold on a second. Bit.ly / AWOK releases.
I did have it, but then I closed that window.
All of this stuff, by the way, is in that episode of AWOK Talk and over on the Kickstarter. So if you're a backer, check your emails because those Kickstarter updates go directly to you. If you're not a backer, just check the Kickstarter roughly every Wednesday. We're going to try for every Wednesday. There might be some Wednesdays where nothing comes out, but that's where this is. So this is a sort of a separate like AWOK only thing where I initially started this just because I wanted to see like, hey, like what is everything that Spiro has released for Animal Warriors of the Kingdom, as well as this. I think I started generating this when we were doing the Kickstarter, and I was like, dude, what's the difference between like a standard buck and this buck and that buck? Because there's so much coming down the pike, right? And it's like giant buck, heavy buck. So all of those are the release dates. And it's always fun to sort of see like, oh yeah, there's been kind of this steady trickle of things since 2023. And then if you kind of keep going down till past.
Yeah, hold on.
There you go. Once it gets color. So this is all stuff, everything in color stuff that hasn't come out yet. So that's all the figures that have just come out, fall 2024. This is the stuff that would have essentially be wave 5, as folks know it, and that would have been the Void. And so all of this stuff is there. I don't know how much we need to talk about it here, other than I would love to push people to the recent AWOK Talk episode where Jason and I break it down, or the Kickstarter. But what might be good is to kind of briefly talk about the major changes. Could you break those down, Jason, like in terms of what we originally said in the Kickstarter versus what's actual?
Right.
Like,
so
which figures are coming out first, waves, etc.
So the nice golden ratio for what we consider for us, the factory and the customers, is waves of 4. Now, if you look at the Void wave, it's only 3 figures. But then when you couple it with Series 2, Wave 1, it winds up being, what is it, like 7, 8
9
figures?
total.
So right there, we've got a bunch of figures. And the reason that's one production is because the Void essentially shares 85% of the same parts as all the other Brawlers. So it's going to be part of that production. What's nice about this situation, though, is that Necro Pale and the Feralist Ranger's already done. They just need to assemble those figures and package them. But we decided to just do those all in one production and ship that all ship that all as one delivery or one order. And when I say order, I mean, on our end, like Spiro's order from the factory. And, if we tried to do the lizards in with that, it would probably result in another 6 months on top of what we're already off of our projections. So we thought it would be just better to go ahead and get that Brawler wave out. And then we're going to do the lizard wave, which is fun because if you look, there's only 3 SKUs in it. And I already mentioned the factory likes to do 4 SKUs, and so do we. So that kind of gives me a slot to kind of sneak in another reptile into that delivery. So, Kickstarter people will obviously get all their stuff. And then if people want to add on top of that, if they like the additional figure, they can kind of add that onto there. So, and then when you look at Series 2, we're back onto, it's still 4 plus SKU, but it's going to be another large wave of figures. So we won't have the same opportunity to kind of sneak in an additional SKU like we will with the reptiles. Excuse me, my nose is running. Bushido, we're just doing the 3 figures because it's Series 1. So we don't want to kind of, get too far over our skis, so to speak. But again, whenever you look at the birds are going to have an extra slot. So we're going to slot something in there as well. And then when you look at wave 5 of Series 2, that's the elephant, and then the rhinos. That most likely won't have 4 SKUs. And if it does have a 4th SKU, it'll probably be something using one of the original bodies just to kind of have a little bit more of a diverse wave. But with all that being said, we do want to kind of sneak in some surprises and stuff, here and there, wherever we can kind of fit it. And work with the factory to not overexert them. So
Mhm.
we're showing you what we have on the slate. That's very public, but we do have plans to kind of sneak a couple of little surprises in throughout this production run, or all of these production runs.
What was really helpful for me in our conversation the other day, and honestly, I don't remember if it made it to the final edit or not, but that whole golden ratio you're talking about, a lot of that has to do with not making it too complicated, not let alone
Right.
timely.
Exactly.
But you know,
Yeah.
you were talking about how, like, literally in the factory, every single piece of a figure is spread out in a bunch of bins, and then those
Exactly.
get turned into these figures. The second you
Right.
have, you know, more than a certain number, it's a lot of work and a lot of room for error and QC issues
Exactly.
and all of that.
Yeah.
So like when I hear, especially what I think is kind of interesting is how generally, if you look at those waves, there's part of the to try and make it easy is that they're all based on essentially the same buck. Like all the lizards
Right.
are going to be the same buck coming out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then all of the for the
Yeah.
most part, the brawlers, right? You've got the necro wave, but then you've got a bunch of brawlers using that. So
Right.
kind of simplifies things. I just want to throw that out there to kind of help folks understand, and we'll answer some of the questions later. But folks are like, hey, can we move this forward? And I
Yeah.
know some of it's kind of lighthearted and just wish fulfillment. Can you put this figure to wave 2 or wave 3? But what that could generally the answer is no, but also there's reasons, right? I don't think anybody wants to deal with the level of complications that could come out of that. And then that's where we'll see a lot more of the kind of potential for QC issues. And
right.
it's interesting
one of the
for
things
me
that
to
helps us. Yeah. Well, all these files have to be vetted. We talked about it in the other stream, but whenever we did the check models for the brawlers, they were too small. So like, I'm so glad that like we did check models to make sure, like, obviously they have to move correctly, but we did it and we were like, they're too small. So that meant that like, we had to like, adjust all the tooling and everything and kind of make sure that, it's the correct size. And I'm kicking myself because I should have sent the comparisons that Dave Proctor sent over. He sent like 3 different versions, like the original version, what he suggested, and then a little bit bigger. And I was like, I agree with you. The one in the middle is the way to go. I need to scrounge those up. I might send those over to you so that we can show it in the actual Kickstarter update. So we had to do that. We need to make it, the way it's supposed to be. That way, when people get stuff, they don't want to get like a King Thane, a King Hannibal, and he's like the same size as a Treyu. It wouldn't make sense.
right.
And then, so that's one thing. So, doing all one body type like this is very, very helpful to the factory when they're making all the tooling molds and whatnot. And ideally, what I have envisioned is by the time we get to wave 5, the wave after that will be a mix of all these different body types. So you'll have something, it'll be 4 figures, but it could be a female, a pale buck, a brawler buck, and then maybe like another bird, So, and we're going to keep doing that.
At that point, when you've already produced final figures with each of those bucks, it's a matter of sort of mix and match.
The tooling molds, we know the tooling molds work. We know the right kind of plastic. That it's just a matter of kind of pushing the plastic through the molds and then the paint apps, and it kind of eliminates all the guesswork out of it at that point. And the portfolio of parts will be that nice and broad. So you'll get to a point where, like you're at the Marvel Legends where you've got one wave's got a speedster, a female, a big brawny guy, Spider-Man or whatever. So that's the goal for the AWOK offerings by the end after wave 5.
I think, you kind of heard, well, go ahead, Adam.
I was gonna say, so I wasn't able to sort of make the recording of that last video with you guys, but there's a couple questions in the comments here, and I'm gonna sort of paraphrase them or sort of rephrase them in a way. And Brick, you've already sort of mentioned this, but I'll just sort of read the questions and then I'll sort of paraphrase and kind of, I think, hopefully kind of lead you, Jason, to the answer, because there's a bit of an ambiguity here that I think is pretty easily explained. But anyway, Brian Brink asked, can we petition you to do wave 4 before wave 2? It's not spring 2025 yet. Maybe you could swap them. I want those birds. And Rob Zamora said, any chance Boone can pirate his way up to wave 1? Now, here's the question, and I think this is sort of so if an item was moved, so say wave 4 with the birds decided to be prioritized and it jumped the queue all the way to the front there, would that make the birds be produced in the time frame that wave 1 is looking at, or would it push everything back?
I don't know. I know that they're like already doing like the tooling's done for wave 1. And I know they're working on the tooling for the reptiles, so that wouldn't even be like, we couldn't sneak it in right there. But I think moving waves around would start a precedent of like having people like really kind of petition and start like, you know, getting let down and bummed out if we start moving stuff around.
I think really what it so if I may interject, and please, you know,
please
correct me if I'm wrong, but basically
I followed your lead.
We're working through the design process with each of these bucks, and we're kind of doing one at a time in order to get them out, instead of getting them all out in 2027 because they're all done then. We're working on one. We'll work through that process. We'll get those molds dialed in. Once those are ready, we can start producing those and start moving on to the next buck and the next molds and so on and so forth. Once the parts catalog is there, there's not the same delays because you're just picking the parts that are available.
Right.
And you're going, okay, use this arm, use this torso, use this head, on and on and on.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
But I think what the kind of confusion is that all of this is all happening at once, and that's not quite the case. As I said, with a very small team, we're working on sort of each thing individually as we move through the process. And this is just sort of the schedule that we're going with, because this is how the Kickstarter was kind of, you know, laid out, where the Brawlers made the most sense just because of the characters in there, and then the Lizards sort of made sense because it's close enough to the original buck.
It's actually the exact same buck. So you know, when the sculptors open up ZBrush, they've got different layers and stuff. They can turn off the furry texture and turn off the lizard texture. I think the pectoral area is slightly different and the ab area is slightly different, but proportion wise, they're the same. So like Adam said, there's a couple of different things that really benefit those two going first. They're essentially the same exact articulation, even though, you know, King Hannibal's much beefier. It's the same articulation. So the factory knows like what 3 plastics to use for the Brawlers and the reptiles. The females have an undercut under the bust. They don't have the ab crunch. You know, they've got the bowl at the hip, at the waist, and then right under the bust. So that's a totally new articulation for the most complicated part of the toy, which is the torso area. You know, I would say the torso and pelvis area are essentially, I can kind of consider that one unit. The speedsters are very similar to the Pale buck from the top up, but then when you get under the waist, those pants are a different type of thing. So again, it adds more to the confusion. And then the birds are probably the most challenging one. Again, they've got like the undercut, they've got the skinny legs. All of them have soft goods. I know
wings.
Right. They've got the wings. Eric's still working on Meryl's tunic. He's trying to like really dial it in and make sure that the factory can easily reproduce it and customers can take it on and off without damaging it. So that's where we're at with that stage of the birds right now. The elephant, I don't think is going to be articulation challenging, but it's a big figure. So we'll probably do something kind of similar to the Mythic Legion dragon and the trolls, where it's kind of hollowed, but it's still going to be big and heavy. It's not going to feel like this, you know, cheap piece of plastic. But articulation wise, I don't see that being quite as big a challenge as these other ones. Well, except for the wire in his nose, you know. So
And then Christopher Bouchard, I think when we were talking about the lizard wave having a slot, he said a new lizard. Really, that's nice. Now, here's my question to sort of clarify that. Would the lizard wave theoretically have another lizard, or would the lizard wave have a figure with existing tooling?
It would be it would be a lizard with existing tooling. So it's going to be something like with all the heads that you've seen so far. We did, how many heads did we do? Was it 4 or 5 heads? We did, there's 6 different heads, right? Six heads to pick from. So
Including different color variations?
I'm just talking about the sculpt itself. So like we did 6 different heads for the lizards, because each lizard has a pack-in head, you know?
Right. Yes.
Makes
so I
sense?
think it's
Yeah.
6. I think
So
it's
it'll
6.
be, yeah, so it'll be those heads that we did.
But just in a different, deco, basically.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Different deco.
So then with with the bird wave, there would theoretically be a 4th bird figure.
That's what I'm
Sure.
hoping. It might
Okay.
not be, but I would hope it's
There could
I
be.
would like for it to
It
be
could
another
be.
bird.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
There's room for, and it sounds like you're looking at it, which is kind of fun. Because part of that conversation came out of Adam. We were Jason and I were kind of talking about like, oh, this is so awesome that you're in a position now to step back and say, this is every AWOK figure and Bushido figure coming out between now and summer 2027. But on the collector end, I could imagine some people being like, oh man, I know everything already. So like, I'll kind of stop paying attention, and there's no surprises. But like, actually, there are going to be surprises, which is fun to be reminded of. So.
Yeah.
There are, I mean, and we say this all the time. There are other designs being sort of kicked around and on different bucks and different body types and different species and things like that. So I think it's sort of like, this looks, and I get where people are sort of like, oh, it's bad news. I thought this figure was going to come out in 2026, but now it's 2027 or whatever. But it's the reality is every time something takes a little bit longer, everything else kind of gets pushed along, because these aren't sort of concurrently being developed. They're sort of being developed kind of in this timeline, right, where we work through a wave and then we move on to the next wave, and then we sort of wrap what we can with that and move on to the next thing. So it's not as though we can just get more people to do more stuff. It's literally like the very limited number of people working as hard and as fast as they can to get these things out, but also to do them right. And that's the reality, is that Brawler wasn't big enough. And if a small Brawler would have been acceptable, there might not have been the same delay. So
it would have really bothered me.
It would have bothered me too, and I think it would have bothered everybody. And that's sort of the point, that I'm trying to make tongue in cheek, is that sometimes the delays are out of our control, and sometimes they're our choice. Sometimes we're like, okay, this is going to delay things, but it's going to make the product better, and it's worth it. And this stuff's going to fly by, because it's freaking 2025. Like it's things that I've been like
and that's
waiting for are going to be here, in the next couple months. And I'm like, holy crap, that happened quick.
So, clearly I have
one of the
bias.
things that's nice. Sorry, go ahead.
Go for it.
Talking over you.
Well, I was just going to say, clearly I have a bias. I'm not one of those 4 employees, but I am somebody who has helped and has played a role, and I clearly love these things. But I will say that just like it's the same with every other great figure line that I collect. Like I'm really excited about Necronominus, for example, and I was looking back at that like just the other day and realizing, oh, dude, that was GCon 2022.
Yeah,
it is now 2025.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah,
but I'm okay, because there's like all these other things that have come along the way, and frankly, there's like we're being bombarded with all sorts of like new toy companies and other things, like other Kickstarters.
Yeah,
and so I'm just throwing that out there as a collector. Like I know the stuff is coming. I'm barely still like just feasting on the Horror Ravager, like all these kind of other things that just came out. And so I don't know, that's one take is like, hey, what you guys said, it's worth it. And absolutely it's going to be worth it. We know these figures are awesome, but also like, hey, I'm okay with waiting as long as, they're going to be just as good as I know they will be based on all the other figures. But I'm also just good with waiting because like I'm kind of used to it. And like Spiro doesn't stand out to me as being unique in pausing some things or delaying some things or shifting. Like to me, this is actually just the way it goes. Like Armies of Ashmore, I'm waiting on. And this is not a way to like throw a bunch of people on the bus. I'm just saying like this is actually just how the game is. And maybe if I get it, if you're used to Mattel and maybe Hasbro, where it's like it's less about they never delay things. It's like no, they never actually tell us totally when things are coming out, and then they just sort of show up.
It's not as transparent.
So, just different. Yeah,
I think playing in a band, for years has like prepared me for this type of thing. Where like I would get frustrated because they would say, "Hey, you're going on at 10," and there's like 2 bands before you, and like they play like 10 minutes longer than they're supposed to. And so like it affects every single other step after every other band after that. No, so I kind of applied it to that, hopefully that makes a little bit of sense.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what the chat, I know folks have a lot of, let's hear what folks have to say about.
I pulled up a couple questions already before, but like, I think that's, Austin says fourth bird being a blue jay seems like the easiest choice since you've got a cardinal, but obviously I'm just some guy on the internet. Gabrielle said the different scales within the line is what I'm most excited about. So I'm glad the Brawlers are getting the revisions to match the vision you guys had. And that's the thing, right? And that's what we're talking about is like, we could have made small, whoops, I didn't mean to highlight that one. We could have made them wrong. And the timeline doesn't get changed, and then people get them in hand, and they're like, "I thought it would be bigger," and it's sort of like that wouldn't make sense. Nobody would be happy with that. So it's sort of finding that balance of like how long it's going to take and what it needs to be, rather than just sort of rushing the process and sort of disappointing people with what's in hand. Right? Once you get it in hand, you're gonna love it, and that's sort of the reality is that like. It would be better for you to love this thing than for us to get it to you quickly. And so I think it's the move that most companies are making. I do know of certain products.
If you look at video games,
they get rushed.
They delay now.
People got disappointed, but video games get delayed. Things get delayed, right? Like it's just sort of the, I don't know. What are you going to say? But
I'm trying to find the images. So
and Christopher Bouchard said, "Can't wait for new armor, weapon sets, and bear figures someday." Someday. There's nothing in this schedule for those, but as we're sort of saying, right? Like there is that need to sort of create new molds and to sort of get those parts out there, and sort of get there in terms of the potential for us to do those. Like we have to have the molds for the Brawlers before we can do an Ancients version of a Brawler. We have to have the female buck before we can do female Ancients. It doesn't work the other way around. So there's not going to be anything probably in sort of this foreseeable timeline type future for those, just because we're trying to pack as much stuff in here as we possibly can, and where we can sneak extra things in. For example, another lizard in wave 2, something like that, we will, but don't think that if we can sneak another lizard in, we can sneak 4 Ancients in there as well. Like that just is sort of outside of the scope of what's feasible.
Right. Yeah.
Help me understand something real quick, because I've heard both of you mention things around the armor sets and the heads and the not blanks, but the primal ancients. But like, as far as like how they sell in general, is that something you can address? Because I think I've heard both of you at different times say like that they don't sell as well as the named figures. I'm assuming. But I mean, is that right?
All the champions definitely sell. Like I don't think they compare. They sell way better.
Yeah.
The
champions being the named characters.
Yeah, exactly. There are some that were really popular. Like Onyx sold really well. Ash sold really well. We don't have a lot of the stuff left, but
I think
like Feral Beastie didn't sell like hotcakes, but that's the only one that I could think was like really slow. Yeah.
The head packs were very, very slow. What I've personally noticed in the last 3 or 4 months, sort of after the Kickstarter ended, more people sort of knew about the line. People were sort of going back and getting waves 1 and 2 and 3. I think some of those things have picked up a little more momentum. And I think that's a result of people get the figures in hand. They're not exactly sure what they're getting. You know, they get Pale and Kali and they're like, I'll just get a couple. And then, you know, the Rob Zamoras of the world, you know, are ordering twice a week because they're like, wait, I need more.
Right.
And then it's like, well, I can get an alternate head. Okay, then I'm going to need another one of these figures. Oh, and I can get a blank one and get the armor. Right. So I think it's a result of the line being, you know, more
getting
successful,
out there a little more.
Like as
we're really
going.
I think if you look at it, we're like the equivalent of like a mini brewery or an indie band right now.
Yes,
and we obviously want to become a headliner. I mean, like, you know, Brick and I were talking about it. We've only had stuff out for 2 years. I consider like the grand opening of like Animal Warriors and Spiro to be whenever we got the 6-inch stuff in hand. Before then, it was really just me doing, you know, the majority of everything. And now we've got a nice, great, you know, team set in place. A lot of people have like switched over to 6-inch. The 4-inch scale has kind of become the niche, you know. So
yeah, but it's picked up again too.
It has, yeah,
in a weird way,
and that's great because I love that scale.
They're cool figures.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, I'm still very proud of them. But I feel like we've kind of really found our footing with the first Primal Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And I still consider us kind of brand new. You know, we got some
very
really exciting
so.
stuff, you know, going on with, you know, outside of the toys with, you know, the comics and other stuff that I don't want to, you know, talk about just yet, but we've got some cool stuff going on. So I think by this time next year, we'll have expanded to the Bushido stuff and people will have, you know, several waves deep into series 2. Man, there was something else I wanted to say and I forgot. Oh, I remember. Well, we had talked about at the beginning of the segment, there being stuff SKUs that ran out at the warehouse. So Derek and Sequoia had to go and do the packaging and stuff. And I helped them with it. And I was kind of laughing because I was like trying to help them with, I could tell what the packages were because the boxes were so small, but there was just like a ton of head packs. I was like, man, these things like Adam said, they got popular all of a sudden, you know? So I was like dropping them everywhere because I didn't want to like make the like 4 or 5 trips. So I was like trying to do like, let's get this down to 2 trips. And it's like over my chin, you know, like holding stuff and they're like all falling all over the place. So yeah, it's cool. It seems like the popularity of that stuff is picking up.
Yeah, and that's the delay was due to the non-champion stuff. So the delay was due to Onyx.
Is that what it was?
It was Onyx. It was the Horrid armor set, and it was
there were armor sets. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense because you could fit both of them. Like,
yeah,
there was like boxes like this, but like, I mean, there was like normal size stuff too, but I was like, I have no idea what's in that big box. Like, but the headsets and armor sets make sense for that size.
We didn't anticipate they would sell as quickly as they did.
It's true.
It took too long to get them back to the warehouse.
Well,
anyway.
Yeah, you said, how long did it take? 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Like
it was over 4 weeks. Yeah,
that was wild. Yeah.
They got shipped on December 27th, and then they didn't arrive till I think the 23rd of January, like last week.
The only reason I brought all that up too is because people asking about like, you know, hey, are you going to get more blanks or more Primal Ancients? And part of that is like, you know, in that context, it's a question mark, right? I think right now the focus is getting out these named characters and these different waves of different body types. And, you know, again, just in terms of reminder, if I'm be accurate and be objective, even the Primal Beasties, or I keep forgetting, the Primal Ancients didn't actually exist at the beginning of the Kickstarter. Like they were kind of quick. Like, hey, what can we offer because we're selling so much? Let's create a.
We did way better than we were expecting. Like yes. So before we launched that initial Kickstarter, we had all the regular figures designed. Like from Pale all the way to Lexion, we had that designed. We just had like a digital version of Thane So I couldn't even paint that. We didn't have that until after the Kickstarter. So I was, like you said, I was essentially like, we were hit all of the stretch goals. And so we were like offering up those blanks because we kept hitting more and more backers throughout that. It was a great Kickstarter. That Kickstarter was such a pleasure to do. It was exhausting, but very fun. So, you know, I had mentioned in the past, if we, or whenever we do decide to offer Ancients again, I want it to be kind of the opposite of what they are now, which is something that's really designed to be customized. You know, whenever we offer it again, I want to offer something that's almost like a definitive, like dry brushed, really lots of paint apps and everything, but not necessarily a ton of armor. So like, you know, you might have like a really just great ape figure that you can buy the armor packs and slap that on, but you essentially won't need to if you don't want to. You just have like great dry brushing and a bunch of really good detail that is essentially something ready to go.
Well, let's move on to sort of what's going on in production. So we've talked about sort of certain things that have caused delays. I'm gonna limit this just to the one that I'm most excited about. Because we had some other stuff, but it'll be in the update on the Kickstarter. So you know, you can check it out there. There's a whole 5-minute long video where Jason goes over some of the samples that he got, you know, the resized, you know, Brawler accessories and things like that, and then he goes over this as well. This is muted, so we could just sort of talk over it. But if
you're sneaky, you could screen capture that bottom and like zoom in to see what it is.
You could, but it's probably not worth it.
Don't do it.
Enhance.
Just wait till Wednesday.
Here, wait. If I do that, now it's
there.
On.
You go.
So this is, of course, the Kickstarter exclusive Spectral Pale. So this is the translucent glow-in-the-dark pale, which I'm obviously excited about since I explicitly asked for this figure to be made. So I'm excited. And this isn't even like, you know, full production yet. This is pretty much what it's going to be, but it's like bang on. It's got the right color for the translucent. It's got a nice strong glow from the looks of it. So I can't wait to get this. We've spoken about this figure, you know, probably too much.
It feels so good in hand, not to rub it in. And you know what's interesting? So it's like a teal blue, but like in different lighting, it looks greenish, and then other lighting, it looks blue. And the same thing with the glow. Like I think the glow is essentially a green, but sometimes it looks bluish, like more bluish green, and then sometimes it looks more like warm green. So I tried to get the most accurate view with the camera that like what it looks like to the naked eye. So this is as close
to something.
It's probably production, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. we got this is as close to, and then you froze.
Yeah. But
I was mesmerized by the video.
When you said it feels great in hand, so does the plastic feel like original Pale?
It feels like a standard AWOK figure, to tell you the truth.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
that's great.
So
I think that was part of the concern, right? Is that the glow in the dark plastic would potentially be different or feel different. It's
not so. I don't know how far back y'all went with. If you collected the Masters of the Universe Classics line, they did like some crystal clear figures, and the pelvis on the green version of Sorceress was very brittle. So this is not transparent like that stuff. It's an opaque. It's just it's packed with glow in the dark powder.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, if it's glowing, you know, it's going to be a really fun glow in the dark item. I'm excited for everyone to get a hold of it.
When you see the light, you don't see the light behind it except in the softer durometer,
right?
Like the overlay stuff. That's but the actual figure is just a solid block.
Yeah. And
it's cool.
Whenever it gets dark, you can see like it's glowing in the like you can see it's glowing on that black vinyl that's sitting on. It puts out a surprising amount of like ambient light itself.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Wesley K, I'm right there with you. This is my thought exactly. We talked about this a bunch of times. I want to try putting that armor on a regular one too. Absolutely.
Yes, for sure.
I'm thinking like an energy armor. I'm
right, like on his hand,
glowing
powered
fists.
up hand.
Powered up
Yeah.
hands, exactly. So yeah, very, very cool. I'm very, very excited about this.
I
On a
want to see like
related note,
white brush on this thing. I want to see like white dry brushing a little bit, kind of bring out some of those highlights.
yeah, make it look more like a hologram almost.
Yeah.
I've had that thought too. Good thing I ordered 5.
Wait, what are we limited to? No, just kidding.
5. You're limited to 5. I only ordered
Yeah.
5.
Another thing,
on 2
let me
accounts.
say one more thing. It was hard to get all the details in the camera, but it looks really nice in person.
Mhm.
It's like the camera couldn't find what to focus on.
Mhm.
Yeah,
If you could request for Wednesday, if you wouldn't mind taking like some close-up shots to kind of like
Sure,
just, like real tight, just to let people see.
I'm gonna
the
steal
details
Adam's
there.
idea too. Like I'm gonna take one of those gauntlets off and have like a powered up regular pail. So we'll do that too. Yeah.
I think it looks super cool. Sean Colloran asks, will Spectral Pale eventually become available, or will he remain an exclusive? There's no, to the best of my knowledge, and again, Jason, feel free to correct me, there's no plans to release him any other way.
Right, it's just a Kickstarter exclusive.
However, what we've already sort of said is that if this does become available, it'll be for like special occasions or at conventions or something like that. Previous exclusive stuff like Tanger, we have typically at conventions had 5 per day. And then we've had Tanger, I think, on the Spiro Toys site twice, right, for order?
Yeah.
So
Right,
we had
right
it for
after
Black
PowerCon
Friday
and then
right
for Black
after
Friday,
PowerCon.
yeah.
Hey, let's do some giveaways on AWOK Talk and Monkey Business.
Well,
like
that's
it.
the thing, is like that's
a great idea. That's a really good idea. Yeah.
That's where some of this stuff comes into play, right? It's like, if you're a fan, if you're Sean, this is what I will say. If you're following, if you're part of the AWOK group on Facebook, if you're following, this channel and Brick's channel, when these become available, you'll know. Like, it won't be like, hey, we're dropping this in 10 minutes and then they're gone before anybody knows. Like, we'll let you know that there will be possibilities. When we were sort of going back and forth about how exclusive this will be, basically our feeling is, if you're passionate enough about AWOK, you'll end up with one of these figures. It won't be like it won't be something that you have to sort of get on eBay for $300 or something like that. We'll make sure that everybody sort of eventually gets one, but we do want to make it not so easy to get them.
Sure.
Like it. Otherwise, it kind of takes away from the people that got excited about it as an exclusive. So
yeah,
right. It is a special item. It's funny because I am like associating it with the glow in the dark RoboCop. Did we talk about this before? Like I remember getting that. It was a mail-in. It was a mail-in figure in the 80s. It's so funny that they made toys for that crazy violent movie, but I remember getting the glow in the dark RoboCop and just being like, man, I was like, oh my God, it just felt so magical, And we want a little bit of that for this.
I'm gonna pull this down for now. A couple more questions. We'll try to wrap it up pretty quick because it's 3:15. Brick, I know you got to go because you've got your show at 3:45 with Quip today. He's probably already gone. He's probably just working out his voice muscles and things like that.
Me. Yeah, totally, vocal exercises.
But we did. There's another update that kind of is a little bit gone under the radar for a lot of people. I haven't seen Thanos in the chat, but I know that Thanos wants to know issue 5 of the comic book.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yeah. So
when?
So, okay. So I talked to Diamond, and they said that they're scheduled to receive it on the 29th or something, or it's going to go out on the 29th.
Of January.
Yes. So
okay.
So I'm trying to, I think it was the Thanksgiving break. We got everything like ready to go. They kept like sending back like proofs. And I was like, I was going over it with the editor and I was like, I don't see any issues or anything. And we proofed it 5 times and we're like, it's fine. It's good. Go to print. Go to print. And it was Thanksgiving, right? They accepted it and everything. And I'm not throwing them under the bus because I'm not saying who the printer is. Well, like 2 weeks after that, they were like, "Hey, you're." I was like, "What's going on? Why isn't it in production? Why isn't it shipped or whatever?" And they were like, "It's our fault. We saw that you approved it and everything, but for some reason it didn't go into production." So that was a weird delay. There was like part of it was our fault, part of it was their fault, but It's going out on the 29th, so it's all good. And we'll finally get to put the digital version on the website, which will be nice once everyone's got it in hand. It'll go up on the 29th. Well, let's do the 30. Let's do the 30th.
It'll go up after the physical version is available.
And we want people to get it. Yeah.
Now, follow-up question to that: will we release all of the other issues digitally as well for anybody that might have missed them?
Be updated. Yeah, they'll all go up at the same time. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. That's fantastic.
That way you can just get it all in one spot. Yeah.
I know there's some people that missed it. I know that there's people that are still ordering issue 1 because we kind of put it back up on the website. So I'm sure a lot of people will be very, very excited to hear that. But issue 5 is fantastic, and that wraps up the first story arc. So then we're kind of like, we're wrapping up series 1 of the toys. We're wrapping up sort of series 1, if you want to call it, of the comic book. And then we got to work out the details for the trade paperback. So stay tuned for that as well.
We're working on issue 6. We're on like 15 or 16. It's one of those things where like Utama and I like just kind of trudge along because we're like the first issue is like setting up like there's like several plot lines going, and it's like let's make sure all of this can be tied up towards the end with one or two, like one little thing that lets us segue into the third story arc. So some of the stuff we alluded to in issue 1 of the first story arc is getting addressed almost immediately in issue 2, like 8 pages in issue or series 2, second story arc.
I've seen some of the pages.
They're fun. Like,
oh man, that's like
so
the world expands like so fast. You're just like, really wait a minute. In the same way that like when we had issue 1 and like Rick and I had kind of a similar reaction to issue 1, we were like, whoa, this is not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
Issue 6. Issue 6 is kind of another thing where you're like, wait a minute. Like, anyway,
you know what?
Stay tuned
it
for that.
Reminds me, if you've played the Breath of the Wild, it reminds me of like, so the first story arc is when you're on the tutorial island where you're like, man, this is a big spot. And then you realize like, like, then you land and you're like, the rest of it's like really huge. You're like, holy crap, this is way bigger in scope than I realized it was. So,
Red 5 wanted to ask, and I think this is a very valid question. I also want to ask based on the schedule, are we getting AWOK waves of things we don't know about or unrelated to the Kickstarter? So
that's the goal. But I don't want to announce stuff. But that's my hope, is to be able to like sneak stuff in there that we just didn't talk about. And we're like, oh, hey, by the way, we've got this cool thing that we're dropping, So.
And again, that sort of goes back to the idea that like once we have a buck and once we have those parts in the toolkit, it's a lot easier to get a figure into production that is existing parts where
exactly.
We just tell the factory, use these parts from these, and here's the deck. Like we're basically just sending them deco.
Exactly.
We're not vetting the scale. We're not vetting the joints. We're not vetting the plastic. We're not double checking all these things anymore. It's really just hey, can you do this figure in this color? And they're like, yep, here's when you'll get it, and so on and so forth. So it really makes it easier the second time you use a mold. Just
my God,
people are sort of
the factory loves it too. Sean is asking about a crossover between Bushido and AWOK. I'm going to go ahead and say no. I tried to talk Dan into having some sort of like story or comic book related to it, but he really wants it to just be, the mythos of like, this is the Blue Oni and this is the folklore behind it, and let the fans and collectors kind of infuse their own stories and playverse with it. So hopefully that answers that.
But let's not rule out crossovers between other IPs.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I'm not ruling out other crossovers.
More to come on that potentially. Let's see. Sean asked again, you teased a wolf. Any update? I think he's talking about Fang Nights.
Yeah, we don't have any update on that yet. So, but that's the kind of thing that it's because it would be like one figure. It wouldn't be as a big challenge as doing a whole, 5 5 or 6 waves of Brawlers, so to speak. So don't lose hope on it, but it's not something we can really.
But again, it's one of those things where like we can't, as much as we would love to make all the figures tomorrow and have them in everybody's hands, this summer, you do have to have sort of a plan. Otherwise, you just end up with nothing left.
Yeah, mission drift is a real thing. It takes we want to do all these amazing things too, but there's a degree of discipline that we have to kind of commit to what our initial plans were. And if there's scheduling stuff, then we can kind of pivot and move around stuff. But as far as like the production schedule goes, we need to kind of stick to what we've planned, especially, letting the factory know and saying what we've shown publicly. Canines. Yeah, we do have plans to do canines, but we don't want to kind of show anything just yet.
And Gady's Toys, Andrew said, if we're taking requests, sexy deer, any gender.
I'm surprised Tiffany hasn't come on and asked about the white buffalo, female buffalo. I hope she's okay. I hope she's doing all right.
I suspect she is. I think there just hasn't been a Kickstarter that's really piqued her interest in the last little bit. Anyway. All right, we are just over an hour. We were a little bit late, so that's that's on us. But we're looking at about 3:25. So let's we're caught up in the chat. We're sort of caught up with the questions. We've essentially covered all the news that we wanted to talk about, and the updates. Comic books coming out. Figures are on sale. Larry's Geeky World just made his first one from Spiro Toys.
Oh, cool.
I will
Thank
be
you so
putting
much.
that through once we wrap up here.
Yay. Thanks, Larry.
Fulfillment, which means that theoretically, if he's ordered, previous wave figures, not pre-ordered things, that order will probably go out tomorrow. So you should see that very,
It should
very
go
soon.
out tomorrow. Yeah, everything, it's all in stock.
Yeah.
Yeah, let us know what you think in the comments when you get them.
We'll be back in a month.
Larry.
You'll have had them for a while. Come back and let us know.
Yeah.
Don't hop off just yet. Let's just keep talking for a few seconds real quick. Larry, I want to send you something in the comments for you to check out.
Ooh.
There you go.
You won't be able to send a link, but put it in the private chat.
I can't send it in the comments section?
Put it in the private chat.
Private chat.
Cut and paste it.
Yeah, let me put it in the private chat real quick.
But yeah, so issue 5 is issue 5's coming up. What is this? Oh yeah, good call. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Posting a link here to a pop and swap video so you don't break your figures. They're super, super easy to pop and swap if you do it right. Just make sure you heat them up. And make sure you understand that the legs are meant to come off, but the torso and the sort of crotch piece are not meant to be separated. So
it's specifically designed not to come apart. The torso and pelvis is not supposed to come apart. Speaking of, just one more thing real quick. You were asking about how the Spectral Pale felt. So I got the goodie box from the factory. And the same day I got 5 G.I. Joe classified figures. And I have a Spectral Pale set aside for you, but I want to see how durable they are. So I took one out and I just like wrenched it around. And it was cold. Like the box was cold. Everything, it was like it felt cold, and I was like, see if I can break this thing. So I did that with the Pale figure. But the G.I. Joes, like I heated them up and just like dipped them in them because I was like, I bought these. I don't want them to break. Like I got I think it was Leatherneck. Like he was so stiff that even after I heated up the joints, I was like, please do not break. And I haven't had any classified figures break. But he was so stiff that I was like, I only got one of them. I don't want it to break. I got 3 of the Saw Vipers and they were fine, but he was
got multiple Saw Vipers.
So good.
Saw Viper was sculpted by Dan, so I had to.
Yeah, Dan did that.
Yeah,
cool deal. My locals comic shop doesn't even have issue 2. We are working with people in the California region to get the comics into a lot more easily accessible manner for like the printed stuff. So it's just kind of stay tuned, and thank you for your patience. We'll have the digital stuff up in the meantime.
A $4.99 super chat from Kilo Kie.
Thank you.
That's a name I'm not familiar with. Thank you so much. Asking plans for cartoons on TV, YouTube. Keep at it. You guys can be as big as He-Man, Joe's, Thundercats in 80s, 90s. I think so too. I mean,
that would
IP
be
is there,
outstanding. So. You know, you gotta bring your reality into you gotta, you know, think your reality into, well, I don't know what I'm talking about. I think I've had a stroke. Holy cow.
Yeah. I think I've just had a stroke.
Someone translate what I'm trying to say.
To answer the question, the ambition is there to do a cartoon.
Yes.
There is the ambition to do an animated something, whether it's a cartoon or a feature or something like that, and whether it, you know, makes it to TV or it's a Netflix or Amazon or YouTube or whatever. The intention is there. That's sort of Jason's goal for Animal Warriors of the Kingdom has always been to do, you know, the thing that 80s toy lines did. Have a toy line, you know, have a comic book, have the cartoon, you know, the bed sheets,
Fortnite,
you know, toothbrush, tape dispenser, like onesies for your kids, Halloween costumes, you know, and you know, whatever you can imagine that would sort of work with the brand is the.
And if you do get a hold of the
toaster with a pale face on it when it comes.
I like that idea.
If you get a hold of the comic book issues 1 through 5, you'll see that it's very much written and kind of ready for a basically like a season 1 or even like a.
I keep referring to them as seasons because we wrote them with that in mind. And if you look at Utama's sequential art, it's almost edited to where it if you read it, it looks like it's edits from a cartoon.
It has a storyboard feel for sure.
Right,
yeah, and
exactly.
Christopher Bouchard says, thanks, Team Spiro. I have 4 figures. Really enjoy them. I can't wait for what's to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
for that
sir.
Super chat. All right, let's wrap this up before people start giving us more super chats.
Send all of the super chats.
Stay here.
No, we got to wrap it up. Rick's got to do his show. I'm sure Jason's got other stuff to do, and I got to check in with my family and see what's going on here. As always, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you guys in the chat, hanging out and having fun with us, talking about Spiro. Stay tuned.
Check the update on the Kickstarter on Wednesday.
Every Wednesday-ish. Kickstarter updates.
And Gomhai Pachoy.
This.
Yes, every 4 weeks, this monkey business is what you're saying on Highly Articulated. And Gomhai Pachoy, Happy Lunar New Year, Tet, whatever it is. Have a great time this Wednesday, folks. Yep.
Yes.
Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.